Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here in Christchurch. It's my first visit to New Zealand, and I'm happy to be able to present and contribute to this particular topic of regeneration. So this morning I'd like to share with you a very personal experience about how social enterprises can contribute in the recovery and the regeneration of a community and contribute to the revitalisation of social, environmental, and economic systems. So let me take you back to, well, not back, but let me take you to Winnipeg, Canada, in the late 1990s. Winnipeg is a city of about 800,000 people in the epicenter of North America. It's less than 100 kilometers north of the US border, and it has the largest Indigenous population of any city in Canada at about 15%. The North End, the community that I'll be talking about in Winnipeg's inner city, actually has an Indigenous population approaching about 35%. So I was introduced to this community in 1998 while on a 2-year secondment from the Crocus Investment Fund to the North End Community Renewal Corporation, which was just in its startup phase, and I was their Director of Business Development. Waves of new immigrants had been arriving in Winnipeg in the early 50s and 1960s, and it soon became a thriving community destination in the city. Since then, the demographics of this community has changed as immigrants started to move to the suburbs, leaving behind a deteriorating neighborhood, which by the late 1990s suffered from the impacts of decay and poverty. Derelict, boarded-up houses were ripe for arson. Shuttered-up commercial storefronts created an eerie atmosphere of a ghost town. High unemployment, especially among youth, was instrumental in the formation of local neighborhood gangs and responsible for a high crime rate in the area. Residents were afraid to go out on the streets, especially after sunset, and there was a general sense of despair in the community. The North End Community Renewal Corporation was set up as a non-profit, and it was initiated by the Mennonite Central Committee as a way to address the crisis in the community. It organized the community from a grassroots up, including residents, faith-based organizations, community organizations, organized labor, and the remaining businesses still in the community. A community renewal plan was developed and implemented. As part of this plan, the North End Housing Project, another not-for-profit community organization, was set up to provide social housing by purchasing and renovating derelict houses. Many of these properties have been taken over by the city, and they now sold these homes to the project for $1, a nominal fee of $1. Once these houses were renovated, the housing project moved into in-residence on a rent-to-own basis. Upon completing my 2-year secondment, the Crocus Investment Fund, still my employer at the time, supported me in setting up a new entity, Community Ownership Solutions, a charity to assist in the alleviation of poverty in the inner city. COS was not the only charity working on poverty alleviation, but it was the only one that was addressing unemployment by setting up social enterprises to create employment in the community. As general manager of the charity, I identified and developed a business plan for its first social enterprise, inner city renovation, a for-profit enterprise providing construction services. My work with the housing project indicated that there was a real need for this service in the community, as private contractors were unwilling to work in that community, in part for safety reasons and in part that the profit margins were too low. In forming this new social enterprise, I approached 4 nonprofit charities engaged in social housing in the community, as well as social capital partners in Toronto, a social financing organization. These 5 organizations, in addition with Community Ownership Solutions, became equal partners, equal shareholders in the for-profit social enterprise, and we bought shares at each of the 6 organizations had 10 shares of $1 each, so an investment of $10. The 4 housing organizations, their commitment was to provide at least 50% of all their renovation construction needs to the new social enterprise. This was a community effort with all local communications organizations coming together to address a very serious problem devastating this community. So the rebuilding of the community started. Derelict houses were renovated, boarded up commercial properties were bulldozed to make way for renewal. This included the new campus for the University of Manitoba School of Social Work, as well as attracting Urban Circle Training Center, an Indigenous education center to the community. Inner city renovation was a key ingredient in this renewal, renovating over 100,000 and scores of commercial properties, including that training center, the Aboriginal Training Center in the North End on the last slide. ICR earned revenue in excess of $1 million in its first year of operations and employed more than 20 people on a full-time basis. Most of the employees that were hired were from the local community and had been unemployed residents in the community. Very quickly, ICR branched out, building new houses as infill houses on empty lots. That is actually a new house behind me that's boarded up because in that community you wouldn't want to leave a new house unprotected until people that actually moved in. So in addition, we started building new construction projects, including several branches of the Cinnabon Credit Union. Now you can imagine this is about year 3 of the social enterprise, and we're building with people who had been marginalized and unskilled, buildings like that. The finished product is in the bottom right-hand corner. This was followed up by many more commercial projects, including a new facility for the Mountain Crippling Co-op store. It also started competing and taking on residential renovations in the more affluent neighborhoods where the profit margins were considerably higher. It was a collective effort among community organizations, partnerships were formed, and contracts were negotiated between the partners. ICR was committed to providing a living wage, considerably higher than minimum wage, health benefits, and training. It supported employees in the provincial apprenticeship program by enrolling as many employees as possible. Several employees actually became journeyperson carpenters, and ICR was awarded as the Provincial Employer of the Year by the Apprenticeship Board. It also provided supports by bringing a social worker on staff. ICR provided social events, social activities, family picnics, and retreats. And it was an annual retreat with about 50, 60 people where we fished, canoed, and cooked meals together. It also provided local supports. It offered traditional Indigenous healing ceremonies, including sweats and honoring successful employees with hand-carved pipes. The employee base of inner city renovation increased substantially over time. You can see the top left black and white picture was taken in our first few months of operations, and the bottom right was a commercial project that we did maybe 2-3 years, or maybe 4 years into our after startup. By year 5, full-time year-round employment had increased to more than 30. By year 10, that increased or had peaked at about 40, with more than $4 million in annual revenue. In 2017, just earlier this year, after 15 years of startup, ICR closed its doors. Closure was mainly a result of poor management and failure to adapt to a changing environment. During that course of time, Inner City had also started up 2 other social enterprises, a janitorial business and a property management social enterprise. Both of these only lasted 2 years. The janitorial one was a result of my own negligence, not realizing that the industry actually survives on people working on piecework and not on minimum wage, and consequently we couldn't compete. And this is true throughout Canada, that the janitorial industry is very, very hard. It's not regulated properly and it's very hard to compete in. The property management business was another story where we were trying to provide property management to community organizations that owned their own property and to try to take the management component away from their day-to-day activities. Again, because of financial resources that they had, they still preferred to use their own staff for property management. So what can we take away from this experience? Number one, a multifaceted approach, including community organizations focusing on housing, economic renewal, and employment creation can work well together. Number two, top-down and bottom-up approaches can both be used in tackling community revitalisation. North End Renewal Corporation was a bottom-up approach, where community ownership solutions was a top-down approach, and both work and can be effective depending on circumstances. Number three, existing community organizations can rally support initiatives that support social enterprises. The example I've just shared with you this morning is a good example of community organizations forming partnerships and supporting each other and taking on bigger issues in the community. And social enterprises played a key role in this transformation. 4, creating employment opportunities and providing training through social enterprise is key to community renewal. And 5, social enterprises can be profitable and support economic development in the community. ICR was profitable in year 5 and played a critical role in that renewal of the community. 6, financing is available when the business idea is sound and the enterprise has competent management. COS, with its charitable status, raised more than $3 million in those early years to assist ICR's startup and financing its early losses. Financing is available as long as the idea is sound and competent management is in place to lead it. 7, with creative and competent leadership, communities can respond positively to renewal. Number 8, workers given a chance can perform and achieve amazing results. Don't underestimate the capability of people's ingenuity. Given an opportunity, they can deliver amazing results, as you've seen through some of those pictures I showed of the various commercial buildings that we built over the years. And number 9, where there is a need, there is an opportunity. That's really important. So in summary, competent, committed, and talented and passionate management leading a social enterprise is a key element to making a difference between success and failure. Fulfilling a need or responding to opportunities in the community is critical to the success of a social enterprise. Services offered by a social enterprise need to fit with the workers' capabilities and needs. Partnership with other community organizations, ideally ones with charitable status, provide an opportunity for grants or donations that are critical. And last, and this is really important, not every social enterprise is going to survive forever. Some are successful over a period of time, and others, like many private sector enterprises, fail in the first years. But all, regardless of longevity, provided opportunity, income, training for their employees, and an important service to their community. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.